Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today we have another interesting idea, prospective kind of situation on the line, NFL draft oriented, of course, because kind of that's where we're looking toward at this point in the season, right? The Giants starting Mike Glennon. I have no freaking interest in Mike Glennon. Jake Fromm, maybe get a little action. Do I have any interest in Jake Fromm? Absolutely not. Do I would rather see him play than Mike Glennon? Absolutely. I just want something different. We know what Mike Glennon is. And he sucks. So the Giants right now, half their team is really dealing with injury, some COVID situations. I know Ocean Ximenez tested positive, and I believe another player did as well. I forget who it was. But there's a lot of kind of moving pieces on this Giants team right now. They're probably going to get smoked by Dallas, and you never want to see that. But ultimately, there is a situation in the draft that I do find interesting that, some analysts brought up this morning, and the idea is that the Giants may want to consider looking at a quarterback in the draft, maybe not the first round, maybe the second round, because there are some value picks there that could be a good option to develop for a season behind Daniel Jones in his fourth season, and really just see how that kind of happens and unfolds behind the scenes. And the quarterback of choice in this specific video is University of Cincinnati, QB Desmond Ritter, and this kid, has been compared to guys like Josh Allen. He's a big guy. He's fast. He's athletic. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's a lot. He just has the physical traits you want in a quarterback. And if you haven't watched him before, I'd recommend go checking him out. His wind up, his arm motion is a little bit slow for me. He kind of uses this gunslinger, this kind of slinging action. But that can be fixed a little bit down the line at the NFL level. But before we dive into Desmond Ritter and how this kind of would unfold for the Giants and the scenario that we want to discuss, Anthony, my friend, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, and I'm excited to be finally discussing the NFL draft because I'm sick and tired of the Giants season. I'm totally checked out. I don't care. I don't want to watch Mike Glennon play. If Jake Fromm plays, I still don't care. And everybody's hurt. There's nothing exciting about the New York Giants right now, other than the fact that we have two first round picks in this upcoming draft. And we probably are going to have a new general manager making those selections. That's what's exciting to me. So when I look ahead to the draft and the Giants having 11 total picks, that's when I get excited. I don't get excited on Sundays right now because I just know that the Giants are going to lose. And I'm not happy when the Giants lose, so it ruins my week. So I've had many weeks ruined this season because of the Giants. So I'm just excited for the offseason. That's what I'm looking ahead to. So I'm excited to be discussing the draft, taking a look at, a potential second round prospect that the Giants could take a flyer on. And of course, discussing the prospect of taking a quarterback in this year's draft because it might not be the most popular idea. I know a lot of Giants fans are saying you can't really tell what you have in Daniel Jones until you fix what's around him. That's completely true, but the window of opportunity for Daniel Jones is closing rapidly because he's going to have to get his fifth-year option picked up pretty soon, and that's $20 million. And I think we can all agree he's not worth $20 million. Plus, the fact that he's been hurt every year, so that kind of, throws in another variable of should the Giants even wait a year to get a quarterback? What if he gets hurt next year? It's all just a lot of question marks surrounding Daniel Jones. So if the Giants do decide with a new general manager in place to go with a different quarterback, it wouldn't totally surprise me, but it would surprise me if they go ahead and do that in the second round, which is a pretty interesting idea that you've brought up, Alex. So I'm excited to discuss that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a situation that many fans will probably either disagree or agree with, right? Because a lot of people are not on the Daniel Jones bandwagon, and Anthony and I, we both were very big advocates, kind of at the halfway point in the season because we wanted to see what he could do in the second half. We wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, hopefully get Andrew Thomas back from injury, hopefully get some of those weapons back, and instead, all his weapons got injured again, and Daniel Jones himself got injured. So we really haven't been able to see the development and really some continuity within this team to see if he can be the future, really even offer him, that fifth-year option. The Giants have to decide this upcoming offseason on the fifth-year option, which is another huge factor that plays into this scenario. And the reason is because the fifth-year option would count about $21 million. Now, I feel like the Giants will pick it up, but I don't think it's the best idea because if he fails, you're now on the hook for $21 million for a quarterback who nobody wants. So you're really going to have to find a trade, or you're just going to have to eat the money and have him sit on the bench as a backup while you start another player, or you roll with him. You continue to roll with him despite the injuries and the inconsistencies and whatnot. But, when I look at Daniel Jones, I see a quarterback who has good arm strength, great athleticism. He has all the things that you want, but he doesn't have the things around him to actually elevate his level of play to a point where we can say, we trust him. I don't trust him right now. He's injured. The offensive line is still a mess next year. If we go out and draft, a lot of people are like, we'll go out and draft all these guys and we'll boost the offensive line. And like, yes, we will, but there's no guarantee that they're going to be good in their first year. There's no guarantee that the offensive line is going to hold up. Look at Andrew Thomas. He sucked his rookie season and then now he's doing well. So another quarterback, kind of developing behind Daniel Jones could be ideal because you really use Daniel Jones as this stopgap next season while the offensive line is getting some continuity and really growing into itself. And then you have another quarterback take over when the team is ready for it. I don't think a quarterback is really ready to come here and really dominate. And a lot of people suggest maybe Russell Wilson is the guy. And if we traded for Russell Wilson, would I be mad about it? Absolutely not. We have a freaking Hall of Fame quarterback. I would love that. But at the end of the day, the offensive line is still going to be bad. He only has 2 years left on his contract. So let's say the offensive line next year is not good. And then you go into 2023, 1 year left on his deal. His deal expires. The team's not doing so well. Maybe they're a fringe playoff team. His deal expires and he walks and we're out 3 draft picks from the first round. So that's kind of what scares me about the concept of Russell Wilson. But Desmond Ridder specifically is the kind of guy you want to sit behind a quarterback for a year, let your coaches develop. And now, do I trust the Giants coaching staff? Not necessarily. Do I think that a year behind a guy like Daniel Jones just to learn the system and really, I think that he actually would fit the type of game the Giants have tried to play with Daniel Jones because they try to incorporate RPOs and read options, and Desmond Ridder has the athleticism to do both of those things. I even think at a higher level, he feels more aggressive. He's more of an aggressive quarterback. When I watch Daniel Jones, he's very conservative. He doesn't really take a lot of shots. He doesn't put the ball up into good spots. He throws absolute laser beams, which is not really good for guys like Kenny Golladay who need more touch passes up in the air where they can go up and jump all those catches. And I don't think that Daniel Jones really delivers the appropriate ball at all times. Desmond Ridder throws a really nice ball. He has a great deep ball. His inconsistencies really rely on like accuracy, and he's overly aggressive, right? Those are the two things that really stand out in his game. Now accuracy issues and also like decision making, right? Which kind of plays into the aggressiveness. But I love aggressive quarterback. If he can become aggressive but intelligent with his decision making, that's where things get a little bit, high upside. And I think that he does have the upside for that. And a season really learning a system and really taking over with a decent offensive line and a knowledge in a system could really benefit him, Anthony. But he's not really going in the first round. He's a second round mocked quarterback at this point in time, maybe a back end second round, maybe you trade up. The Giants have 9 picks in this draft. So maybe you trade back from the first rounders, you get another second round pick or a third round pick, and you trade up and you get him in the mid second round. Maybe that's a scenario where the Giants could say, oh, that's a great value pick. And now we have someone we can develop. And if it doesn't pan out, then so what? Well, go out and get a quarterback nonetheless in 2023. But ultimately, Anthony, what do you think about this concept of, just drafting a quarterback in the second round? A lot of people are going to say we need offensive linemen, we need pass rushers, and I totally agree. But that's why, we have to discuss alternative, scenarios because the Giants will be bringing in a new general manager. We don't know who that will be or what they will want.
Yeah, of course, we don't know what the new general manager's MO is going to be. We assume he's going to come in, completely redo the offensive line, as he should, right? Just hold on to Andrew Thomas and pretty much replace every other position at this point. That's probably what's going to happen. But I like this idea in a way because it's a little unorthodox. Usually, when you talk about bringing in a quarterback, a draft pick, to sit behind another quarterback, you're usually talking about bringing in a young quarterback to sit behind a veteran quarterback, which I guess technically at this point, Daniel Jones is a veteran quarterback because he's been in the league for more than 3 years. But you usually want like a 15-year NFL veteran, 10-year NFL veteran to stand there and be that mentor. And that's not really what the Giants would be doing there. So that's kind of like makes it very unorthodox, this scenario. And another thing that I want to bring up is, yes, right now Desmond Ridder is he's looking to be a second round pick. But he just willed his team into the college football playoffs. And we'll see how that goes because we've seen before where a prospect goes into the college football playoffs, has a dominant performance, and shoots up the draft charts. So right now, yeah, probably going to be a second, maybe third round pick for Desmond Ridder. But he could go out there, ball out against Alabama on December 31st, beat them up, go into the next game, win the championship, and then all of a sudden we're talking about Desmond Ridder as a first round pick. So for now, going with a quarterback in the second round is intriguing, but with Desmond Ridder specifically, let's wait to see exactly what his draft stock ends up being, as we have to really wait for pretty much all of these prospects. We got the combine to get through. He might go out there and look like an animal at the combine. Remember Josh Allen, people? Originally, Josh Allen was supposed to be a second, third round pick. He just started shooting up the draft boards. And then he got to the combine and he threw like a 75-yard pass with like one hitch, and everyone was like, wow, he might be a top 10 pick. And what do you know? He was a top 10 pick and he's been playing like a top 10 pick. He looks like everything that the Bills wanted him to be. So that can always happen. There's a lot of time between now and April before we make selections with these draft prospects where they can really change their draft stock. Desmond Ritter, an interesting prospect, and you compared him to Josh Allen. He's got some of those similar traits. And if you look around the league, that's kind of the way things are going now. You kind of need a quarterback with those traits to be successful at this point. Those are the ones that hit and become the superstars of this league. So Desmond Ritter, high potential guy, a lot of variables there. But you know what? Another thing that I'll mention: second round picks as quarterbacks. How many of those really pan out? And I know you can make the argument how many first round quarterbacks pan out, but the success rate of first round quarterbacks is definitely higher than second round quarterbacks. The only second round quarterback that comes to mind right now is Derek Carr, who's had a pretty good career with the Raiders, but it's been a little up and down. One year he looks like an MVP candidate, the next year they're talking about replacing him. So second round quarterback prospects, how successful can they really be? And how successful do they typically end up being? So that's something to keep in mind as well. But the whole idea of grooming a quarterback behind Daniel Jones, I just think is a really unorthodox idea. And it's something that could potentially work. But I think what's more important than having a quarterback sit behind Daniel Jones and learn is who the Giants bring into this offensive coaching staff, because it's going to change completely. They're going to completely rip this apart. Jason Garrett was fired. This is basically Jason Garrett's offensive coaching staff. These are the guys that he was working with. I think they're going to rip it apart. They're going to bring in a new offensive coordinator. He's going to bring in probably a new quarterbacks coach, although I really like Jerry Shaplinski, but he's probably going to bring in a new quarterbacks coach, new wide receivers coach, new tight ends coach, really going to revamp this whole thing. Hopefully they keep Rob Sale as the offensive line coach, though, because I think that he's done wonders for Andrew Thomas. But just going off of that point, it's going to be very important to see who the Giants end up hiring as their offensive coordinator, because that ultimately will determine what their scheme looks like, what quarterback they go with, how the quarterback playing style is, and then that's going to fall in line with which quarterback they decide to select. If they decide to select one, it's going to have to match up with who their offensive coordinator is. So that's the number one thing, the number one variable to keep in mind when we're discussing the potential of the Giants taking a quarterback in April.
Yeah, and look, I'd like to keep Jerry Shuplinski. I think that given a perfect scenario where this offensive line played above maybe average this season, just at average, I think Daniel Jones would have taken a pretty nice leap forward, and we would have been like, oh, Jerry Shuplinski and those guys did a good job, but ultimately that did not happen. It's would have, could have, should have, but at the end of the day, like we can't sit here and justify retention because of what could have happened. It's what did happen. So I'll say this: when it comes, like you said, it's unorthodox to really develop a quarterback behind Daniel Jones. It's unlikely this is going to happen to begin with, but it's something I wanted to talk about because Desmond Ritter, I was looking at him and I said, you know what? This guy actually, it looks like a good quarterback. He looks like he could develop into something. I'm curious to see how, the fanfare and then really the valuation of him grows and develops as we get nearer to the draft, because that's going to be a really interesting conversation to have if he starts to shoot up draft boards, especially, after a really good season. This year alone, he has 3,190 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. So he's had a couple of picks, but he's definitely a pretty good quarterback. And he has also picked up 369 yards rushing as well. So that's a pretty impressive thing. He has 7 rushing touchdowns. He had 12 last season. Like you said, he's a senior. He has plenty of experience, and he's shown development every single season, which is what you love to see in a prospect. Every year they show growth, and he has a ton of experience starting at a good school. So I think that really stood out to me when I was looking at him. But the thing that I do like about Desmond Ritter in this scenario is that him and Daniel Jones have the playbook wide open for them, right? So if you were to develop Ritter behind Daniel Jones, it would make sense because you could install Ritter after Daniel Jones and the playbook wouldn't have to change, right? You could just really put him right in there. The RPOs, the read options, everything would stay exactly the same. And that, I think, is something to note. You don't have to change your entire scheme for another quarterback. You put in Desmond Ritter and suddenly he can play, and he can fit right in. And you don't miss a beat in terms of, actual alignments and pre-snap motion and whatever it might be. And I do think that Daniel Jones has developed some really bad habits after 3 years of just absolute crap offensive line play and drops. I mean, Darius Slayton has more drops here than any other receiver, I think. And it's really just it's a bad scenario for Daniel Jones. And I think he's developed a lot of bad habits in the process. Desmond Ritter coming here fresh, doesn't have any of these bad habits, develop them for a season and then put him in there when the offensive line has some experience and growth together. I think that's an interesting scenario, Anthony. But I'll ask you this, just as a last kind of point for this. Would you rather use a second round pick on Desmond Ritter, or just go offensive guard, interior offensive lineman, and bolster the line and just go for 2023 for a quarterback?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's kind of tough to decide without knowing what the Giants do in their first round, right? Because I'm on the hype train of going with two offensive linemen in the first round. Like seriously, I'm down for that. If Evan Neal is there, take him. If Tyler Linderbaum is there, take him. Like I'm seriously down to go with two offensive linemen with our top two picks. I think that's a great idea that really reboots the Giants offensive line for the next 10 years, right? That's at least the next 5. If one of those guys doesn't pan out, you're probably going to stick with him for at least 5 years. So you've got two young offensive linemen to develop for at least the next 5 years. So I really like that idea. However, I understand there's other positions of need for the Giants. This team is bad. This roster is bad. They need an edge rusher opposite of Azeez Ojulari going forward. So if they go with an edge rusher at number 5 and then an offensive lineman at number 6, I don't know what I want in the second round because you kind of already satisfied two of your major needs. And then I think you can get a little creative. You can probably even argue maybe the Giants go with a safety there because they're getting a little bit older at that position. Jabril Peppers seems to be on his way out, right? So you could argue safety, you could argue corner, you could argue offensive lineman. Of course, every draft pick is going to be argued the Giants should take an offensive lineman with this pick throughout this draft because last year they didn't take one and nobody understood why because we were sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting for Trey Smith to be drafted by the Giants and they never drafted him. Instead, he fell all the way into the 6th round and went to the Kansas City Chiefs and now he looks like a Pro Bowler. He looks that freaking good. He looks like he's going to be a long-term stud for the Chiefs and the Giants and every other team really missed out on that easy opportunity to get a good offensive lineman. And the Giants aren't going to want to make that mistake again. They're going to have to go for some offensive linemen in this draft. So for me personally, I'm probably looking in the second round and going for a guard. I'm going for an offensive lineman. That's probably my plan. Of course, like I said, don't know what happens in the first round. That's going to change some things. But my plan right now in place for the Giants is to probably draft as many offensive linemen as possible. If the Giants walk away from this draft with 5 total offensive linemen picked, like they replace every single position and add some depth at left tackle, I'm totally happy with that. Get as many offensive linemen as possible. You have 11 total picks. Stock up on offensive linemen because it's got to end. The Giants' reign of terror at the offensive line position for their quarterback needs to end. They have to fix that spot. So go for it. Go for offensive linemen. Personally, I'm prioritizing the offensive line over a potential quarterback in the second round, no matter who that quarterback is. Well, let me take a look at the prospects first, but that's likely what I'm going to do. And I'm going to say, let's look at 2023. Bryce Young is coming out. That's probably where the Giants are going to want to capitalize on the quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I wanted to discuss the situation, but I'm in the same boat as you, right? I want to get this offensive line fixed once and for all, get some young guys in there, let them compete, let them gain some experience together. That 1 year of experience is essential, especially if you're going to go out target a quarterback like a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud or whatever it might be. Again, the Giants, it's going to be tough to get Bryce Young anyway because he's probably going to be the number 1 overall pick. Giants are going to have to give up a boatload to get that pick. They're going to hope whatever team is up there doesn't need a quarterback. Maybe it's Jacksonville again. Who knows? So that could be an ideal situation for the Giants. Say, hey, we'll give you that. We'll give you all this for the number 1 overall pick. You go out and get Bryce Young. They really have to hope that whatever team that is just really doesn't need a quarterback because, otherwise, they can always just sit there and take whatever player it might be. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this episode talking about Desmond Ritter a little bit. And really the prospect of him being this second round pick rather. But again, like offensive line is first and foremost. I don't even want to think about drafting a quarterback until we solve that offensive line situation. And I imagine most of you guys are probably going to agree with that testament. But I hope you guys enjoyed the episode nonetheless. Make sure to subscribe and like the YouTube video below. Really appreciate all the love. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants video.